Thank you. Well, it's that time. We'd like you to rise up for our opening song. It's got a lot of words. You might know some of them. Just sing what you can. Use me, oh God, I stand for you, and here I'll abide as you show me all that I must do. I used to think God is the sun, God is the sun, but God's so much more than the earth and the stars and all of creation. God is creator, all in all, and God needs us to shine its light as me, as you. So use me, oh God, I stand for you, and here I'll abide as you show me all that I must do. Command my hands, what must they do? Command my life, it's here for you. God is the love that heals all creation. God is creator, makes all things new, and God needs us to shine its light as me, as you. So use me, oh God, I stand for you, and here I'll abide as you show me all that I must do. And God needs us to shine its light. God needs us to shine its light. God needs us to shine its light as me, as you. So use me, oh God, I stand for you, and here I'll abide as you show me all that I must do. Show me all that I must do. Show me all that I must do. Woo! Thank you.
Wow. I would say God's doing a pretty good job of shining its light as all of you this morning. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Center for Spiritual Living, Rogue Valley. I'm Kimberly Hawkins, along with my co-minister, Rev. Michelle Ariano. It's our pleasure to have you all here with us this morning. We are an inclusive, progressive spiritual community, and we welcome each one of you no matter where you may happen to be on your own personal spiritual journey. Out of curiosity, is there anyone here for the first time? We'd love to just give you a little love. A few people. Nice. Welcome. Hope you will consider joining us afterwards in the Bosworth Fellowship Hall for a bite to eat and a birthday celebration. Let's see. Our pulpit practitioner this morning is Carol. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Laura? No, Carol White, yes. Carol did the beautiful, Laura, I'm really confused. It must be the time change. Laura did a beautiful meditation this morning. She is holding high watch throughout the service, and Carol will be our pulpit practitioner. And as you heard, our gorgeous musicians are Anton Miserak and Laura Berryhill. We're so pleased to have you guys back after a little vacation in Hawaii. Please turn your cell phones off if you haven't already. And Rev. Michelle.
Yeah, well, welcome everybody. Just to echo what Rev. Kimberly said, we're excited to be with you today and talking about the gift of surrender. How sweet is that? we have a great group of people here, so if you don't mind kind of moving in towards the center so we can leave some room.
This way, they're telling me, Michelle, this way.
Okay. And so just be conscious of people coming through and making space for them, but it is wonderful to see all of your beautiful faces this morning. We are recognizing November birthdays, so all you November birthday babies, if you could stand up so we can sing happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday. We sure do love you.
So as we just breathe into this moment and take a collective breath together, as we move into our contemplative music and our beautiful practitioner Carol to do the invocation, the candle lighting, and the reading.
knew it was going to be beautiful when I got up here. These wonderful smiling faces. And better? Okay. I wanted to start our invocation today with the words that Laura used in her meditation, and it was an absolutely moving meditation centering us in the absolutely beautiful beauty of who we really are. And so I start my invocation today with these words. Okay, Laura, where are you? I blocked them all of a sudden. Be still and know that I am God. In our hearts, each one of us, be still and know that we are God. Individualized expressions of that beautiful love and light and power and harmony and wholeness. It's all God. It's everywhere present. And it's in each and every one of us. Whatever role we have to play in this service, whether it's minister, musician, technical expert, ushers, or congregation absorbing the words and feeling the presence and letting that presence flow out from us in this day. I know that this service is divinely guided, and all we need to hear, we hear, and all we need to be, we are. And I just give incredible thanks for this glorious truth. And so it is. Amen. Okay, and now we're going to light the peace candle. Well, that is if I can squeeze this little handle. I love it when people help me. And that lets me get over here where I can make sure you hear me. Okay. I and Reverend Michelle are lighting this peace candle that represents the light in each one of us. The light of divineness. The Christ consciousness that resides in each of us, knowing as I light this flame of peace and love, we feel it in our hearts deeply, and we send it into the world. As we move into a brief moment of silence for all those in pain, for the victims of senseless violence, and all those suffering right now, we send this light from our hearts. And now, let's do my reading. For today, I chose a reading that's actually a prayer. And it's a prayer that if we lived in surrender every day, in that conscious awareness of the oneness that we are with only good, with God made manifest as goodness, we would be praying this prayer. I love it. Oh, Heavenly Mother, Father God, help us to remember that jerk that cut us off in traffic last night is a single mother who worked 9 hours that day and is rushing home to cook dinner, help with the homework, do the laundry, and spend a few precious moments with her children. Help us to remember that the pierced, tattooed, disinterested young man who can't make change correctly is a worried 19-year-old college student balancing his apprehension over final exams with his fear of not getting his student loans next semester. Remind us, God, that the scary-looking bum, begging for money in the same spot every day, who really ought to get a job, is a slave to the addictions that we can only imagine in our worst nightmares. Help us to remember that the old couple walking annoyingly slow through the store aisles and blocking our shopping progress are saving their moment, knowing, based on the biopsy report that she got back yesterday, that this will be the last year they go shopping together. Heavenly Mother, Father, God, remind us each day of all the gifts you give us. The greatest gift is love. It's not enough to share with those we hold dear, but open our hearts not to just those who are close, but to all humanity. Let us be slow to judge, quick to forgive, show patience, empathy, and love. And so it is.
A song by our good friend Michael Gott. I am a child of the living God, made in the image of perfect love. All that I am, all I've been given to you, my God, I surrender. I surrender. I am a child of the living God, made in the image of perfect love. All that I am, all I've been given to you, my God, I surrender. I surrender. I am a child of the living God, made in the image of perfect love. All that I am, all I've been given to you, my God, I surrender. I surrender. I surrender.
Absolutely beautiful, Anton and Laura. Ay, ay, ay. So this morning we are unwrapping the last of the 5 gifts for an abundant life. And as many of you know who have been here this past few weeks, GIFTS is an acronym. It stands for G for gratitude, intentions, forgiveness, tithing, and the S today, you might have guessed, is surrender. Now, as we unwrap that gift, let's acknowledge that that concept of surrender has a bad rap for a lot of us in many circumstances, and it conjures up images of putting up the white flag, defeat, admitting defeats, giving over our power to someone else, giving up, basically. But from a spiritual standpoint, the concept of surrender is actually a powerful, enriching, enlivening practice. Michael Singer, who wrote a couple books about, well, the untethered soul, some of you may know, and he also wrote one called the surrender, the surrender experiment. He called surrender the highest spiritual practice of all. Interesting. We're going to talk about why. You know, he points out that this world we see that we live in is 13.8 billion years old. We didn't create it. We're not actually doing a very good job of sustaining it, but it goes on. Our bodies are composed of trillions of cells that have the intelligence within them to know what to do. Our bodies breathe, assimilate, eliminate. Without our conscious thought, they regenerate new cells and growth and healing without our effort, without our conscious knowing. And yet, if you're like me, and I imagine most of you are, we have this tendency to think we have to make things happen. We have this tendency to want to change things, preserve things, not to accept the way things are, and somehow play master or mistress of the universe. Does anybody relate to that? I'll take by your giggles that probably yes. And a lot of that activity is done because of fear or wanting to protect ourselves. You know, I read somewhere recently that 2% of our body mass is our brain, and yet at least 20% of our energy spent, our calories spent, is spent from our thinking. And I would venture to guess that for a Zen master, someone who really is surrendered and enlightened, that would be less, because we don't need all that mental energy, right? If we surrender and we operate from the spirit within, we're not trying hard, we're not running hard, we're not in turmoil a lot of the time. Now, as a reminder, when we talk about surrendering from a spiritual perspective, we are not talking about surrendering to a God outside of ourselves. We're not talking about surrendering to the big guy in the sky who wants to keep things from us or punish us or divert us from our true heart's desires. Not at all. In Science of Mind and our teaching, we believe actually that our will and God's will is the same thing. Now, I'm not talking about our ego desires. They're not the same thing. But from our higher self perspective, we are one with the divine, just as we talked about, be still and know that I am God. So there's really no difference. We're surrendering to that which is already within us. I learned about this years ago. I think it was the late 80s, early 90s. I was living in Phoenix, Arizona. And I was monthly, I would say, about seeking Jinshin treatments. Jinshin, actually the full name is Jinshin Jitsu, is an ancient Japanese healing art. It's akin to acupuncture, but they don't use needles. They use pressure points to heal and balance the body's energy. It's really quite lovely and usually very relaxing. But occasionally, the practitioner will press on a point that's very painful and tight. And that was the case for me time and time again. It was this point right here in my neck. And it was excruciating. And she would hold it and hold it and hold it till it finally released. And I would ask every week for weeks until I finally remembered, like, Carol, what is that? Because it hurts so bad. And she said to me, Kimberly, that is the my will, not thine point. And I think, I still store some stuff here. I think I've made progress since then. But at the time, I was in a very stressful job. I was counselor at the upper school, at a private school in Phoenix, and oh gosh, I felt like I had the world on my shoulders. I was not quite a practitioner yet. I had been exposed to New Thought teaching. But, there were kids who were cutting. We had a suicide I've talked about in this very small, close-knit community of only 240 kids in the upper school, and faculty and kids very close. Everyone was just hurting so badly that year, and I felt I was the one, carrying that load. A lot of wealth in the community, so kids had access to cocaine and were abusing. It was tough. It was tough. And so learning that, we can do what we can do and be led to what we are led to do, but we can't take the whole world on our shoulders. We're not meant to. Surrendering. The Buddhists tell us that all suffering comes from either resisting what is, trying to avoid or push stuff away, or clinging, becoming attached and wanting something to either stay as it is or to appear. There's a Sanskrit word for this, samskara. And I think that there's a lot of truth to that. If we could give up resisting what is or clinging to what we want to have, there's peace on the other side of that. But that really involves trusting, doesn't it? Trusting that even though things aren't the way we want them to appear right now, that divine order always reigns. This idea that we can let go and let God. I've been studying, as many of you know, once again all year, A Course in Miracles. And there's a lesson, though there are actually many lessons in there, but the lesson in the Course in Miracles about gratitude is that we should give thanks for everything. Absolutely everything. And the idea is and we talked about gratitude at the first Sunday that we did this series, the idea from the Course is that if we can give thanks for everything, understanding comes after that. And this understanding that there is a divine love intelligence in charge. If we try to figure things out or change things before we give thanks for what is, accepting what is, we get muddled up and in that monkey mind, in that overactive thinking. The Apostle Paul in Thessalonians reminded us of this. He said, in all things, give thanks. And again, it's not our ego, human brain necessarily that can understand. It's this connection that helps us understand. This can be challenging in our divided world. I don't know about you, but last couple of weeks, driving around the Rogue Valley, seeing campaign signs, a lot of them not for the candidate or the issue that I would support. It's hard, and again, just as that beautiful prayer that Carol read, to bless those that disagree and to trust that even if the election doesn't turn out the way we want, that there is a movement underneath all of this that is eternal, that is love intelligence, that is absolute exquisite divine order. It's a tall order to remember that always and believe in that. The Indian spiritual teacher Sri Chinmoy said, surrender is a journey from outer turmoil to inner peace. And isn't that true? We see turmoil out there, but we can still have inner peace here. So it really involves letting go, many spiritual teachers tell us, of the personal self and listening instead to the deeper self, melting into the absolute, if you will. Now, this doesn't mean that we don't take action in the world. It doesn't mean we don't go vote. It doesn't mean that we don't work to change certain things, but we do it from the perspective of, I'm not in charge, I surrender. There's a beautiful affirmation in our book of the month, The 5 Gifts for an Abundant Life, and it goes like this: I surrender to the power and presence of God within me. If God isn't your word, you can substitute, I surrender to the power and presence of spirit within me, or divine intelligence within me, or source within me, whatever resonates with you. And finally, before I surrender the podium to Rev. Michelle for her part in this talk, I want to read to you some reflections on surrender from Reverend Michael Beckwith, whose book, 40-Day Mind Fast Soul Feast, kind of says it all, right? If we could fast from this stinking thinking, like they talk about in 12-step, and rest in our soul and listen with our souls, all would be well. It was St. Augustine who spoke about people who go to God only halfway. He was describing individuals who are willing to give up some of their time for prayer and meditation, some of their negative thought patterns and habits. However, they don't trust quite enough to go all the way with God. They keep one eye on God and one eye on the external world of effects as their source of fulfillment, accepting that which can be known with a false certitude by the 5 senses. When you send out a real soul call to God, omniscience responds. A vibration is sent from you into the universe that draws into your experience that which will support the fulfillment of your desire. Your humility in asking for divine assistance places you in a receptive position as you surrender your human understanding to divine wisdom. When both eyes are placed on God, you have transportation to transformation. That's a real Beckwithism, isn't it? Transportation to transformation. You buy it with the spiritual coin of wisdom, humility, faith, surrender of the ego. Today, give up false mental attachments and beliefs. Free yourself from the delusion that anything external can fulfill the hunger of your soul for God consciousness. Follow the Christ presence within you, and it will liberate your consciousness from all that is unlike your true self, with a capital S. As you passionately devote yourself to knowing God, you will be able to override the demands of the little ego and faithfully surrender to the one who is the finisher of your faith. Today's practice is for all of us to let go and let God. That's a good old-fashioned unity sing, isn't it? And I surrender now to Rev. Michelle.
Thank you, Rev. Kimberly. You know, we share talks. A lot of times we'll do different topics, but today we're both doing surrender. But I think it's a deep enough topic for both of us to talk about. You know, the perspective on surrender I think about is moving out of the flow. You know, so when I resist, I start blocking my flow. And when I surrender, I can allow the flow to come through again. And I think back in the day when I used to think about the word surrender, and it seemed like it was just like I would cringe a little when I heard the word, because I felt like it was like I had to give in, you know, that I had to give up. And it is so the opposite. It is so the opposite. I mean, isn't that spirituality, right? I mean, as we are on our spiritual paths, now I think about the word surrender, and I just am like, like what a relief to feel like I don't have to be in control of everything, and that I can allow the universe to come in, and I can move back into the flow of life. So a quote from Marianne Williamson: "To the ego mind, surrender means giving up. To the spiritual mind, surrender means giving in and receiving." And receiving. And I think about, you know, that saying, I think that everybody here has heard about, what we resist persists in our life. How true is that? I bet you everybody here could give an example of that probably at some point in your life, you know. So in that resisting, it's like that's the energetic that we're putting into the universe, and that's the energetic that we're getting back from the universe. And, whew, you know, that is something that I am continuing to learn as I move through life. You know, I'm continuing. I feel like, you know, we move through all these stages. We can embrace this spiritual path and these words, let go and let God. Like, I feel all of us can be like, yes. But when it actually comes into the action of these words, it's a whole nother thing. You know, and if life is just cruising along and everything's smooth, it's like, yes, let go and let God. But when things start getting hard and things start getting rocky and wavy, and it's a little bit harder to let go and let God, you know, and those are the moments that really shine sometimes, is when we can move through that, still feel all the feelings, and move back into the place of totally trusting, even if it's hard. So another quote I have for you, this one's kind of a in-your-face kind of quote. It's Eckhart Tolle, who is the author of The New Earth and The Power of Now, and just a beautiful spiritual presence. Surrender is a big part of what he teaches in life. So this is how it goes. Always say yes to the present moment. What could be more futile, more insane than to create an inner resistance to what is already? What could be more insane than to oppose life itself, which is now and always now? Surrender to what is, say yes to life, and see how life suddenly starts working for you rather than against you. And it's the ego mind does resist what life is right now. We're wanting things to be different. And when we move into the place, like Rev Kimberly was saying, that ever sweet spot of our higher self, our soul self, spirit within, our divine selves, we can move into a place of seeing with the inner eye and knowing that we are one with the divine. We can move back into the present moment. And I know that when I was younger, I grew up with a lot of challenges, and so I felt like I had to control things. And growing up in a house with dysfunction, I felt like I had to control things, and sometimes I did. But those same patterns from the childhood continues to show up in my adulthood, and I don't need them anymore, and I can let go of them, but they still pop up sometimes. So I have a personal story to share with you about that exact topic. So I have been going through a lot of change in my life, and really feeling good about the choices that I'm making. And I moved from my home, and I downsized, and I cleaned everything out and cleared everything, and I just was feeling this one with spirit. Like I was feeling like the energy was more vibrant, and I was feeling aligned. I was trusting the inner nudges and following those inner nudges, and it felt really good until it didn't. And when it didn't, like I hit a wall. Like I didn't get a tenant for my house right away, and then my sink got clogged up. And literally, I was so vulnerable. And isn't it when we're in our most vulnerable places that some of the old stuff pops up again? And I was so vulnerable in a stage, and I was thinking, well, divine, come on. Like, I'm doing all of this. It's time for you to show up. Come on. Like, what's happening here? I'm trusting life, and it's just not happening on my terms. And I went through a couple of really hard days of feeling the crunchiness of that, feeling the vulnerability of that. And I also pulled in some of the old stuff of feeling hard on myself. Did I make the right decision? Did I make the right choices? Am I crazy? Am I nutty for just listening to this inner voice and it's not showing up in my timing? I went through this kind of this, and Reverend Michael Beckwith calls it this chemicalization. When we go through change, it's like the goo of butterflies, and there's a new greater me coming through. And as each of us do that, there's a new greater part of us coming through, but through there's the inner stuff happening. And that inner stuff happened, and the blessing, I could say 10 years ago, I'd struggled with that for a couple weeks. And the blessing of my spiritual life and my spiritual practices is it was a couple days for me. And in those days, I was resisting everything. I was out of the now moment. And I was like, poor me. I moved a little bit into the victim mentality. But I knew enough to get up in the morning and pray. And I knew enough to get up in the morning and meditate. And I knew that Spirit was there. I always knew Spirit was there. But I just really knew I couldn't listen at that moment, that I would listen as soon as I was ready. And, after 2 days, I did my spiritual practices in the morning, and I did this reading that was just divinely guided to me. And it opened my heart, and the tears came down, and the ahas came through, and I knew that it's not my timing, it's divine timing. And that trust with a capital T is fierce. It's not this light little, ooh, I'm just going to trust. No, it's like as I'm stepping out in faith, that trust is everything. It's beyond circumstances. It's beyond appearances. And trusting the divine flow is surrendering to it, is to allow that flow to come back into life. And when I could do that, I could just feel the blessings of just being me, And when I was resisting, I was missing everything. I was missing the beautiful colors of fall. It was like I wasn't able to see because I was having a hard time with it all. You know, and that's the beauty of being on a spiritual journey. We are not going to be perfect, none of us. That's just not how reality is. It's this quirky human experience that we're all living in. This quirky experience, and as we are these beautiful divine beings living in this quirky human experience, it's going to be a little bit of everything. But that everythingness serves us. Because when I came through the other side, my wings were a little bit more. My colors were a little bit more. My faith was a little bit deeper. And my surrender was a little bit more powerful. And that's life, you know, it's the rub that polishes us, you know, and that rub polished me. And I am grateful for it right now. I wouldn't have said that to you a couple weeks ago, but I am grateful for it right now. And then continuing to be in that space of continuing to trust the divine in all that is taking place in my life, you know, and as we continue to step out and trust a little bit more, it's harder for us to see with our ego minds or through appearance. We trust each step as we continue to trust the divine. And when it unfolds, it far surpasses what I could have ever imagined it to be. Far surpasses. And a really quick story on that. I mean, and I've shared this before, but it was about singing in the agape choir. You know, it's such a perfect example. I just kept energizing with it and energizing, and I knew I would never officially go through that process because I live 2 hours away, and you know, I'm not a trained singer. But then I show up, and after a meditation retreat, and I'm in the choir stand, and we're singing the song that Ricky Beebe taught us in the retreat, and I am dead center, singing my heart out to everybody like God just took over. But it was those divine moments that far surpassed anything that I could have ever thought in my mind. And those show up for me in so many different ways, and the connections that I have with my beautiful community and my family and my friends and nature, that it surpasses anything I could ever see or feel when I trust, when I surrender, when I allow, and when I come back to that present moment. You know, and one of the things that helps me with that I wanted to bring in today is humor. You know, because surrendering goes anywhere from, and what we were talking about, resisting the weather. You know, right? It can be anywhere from getting up, it's raining and I want to hike, and, you know, and I could be a little bit like I'll have to, you know, I love being out in nature, to resisting the flow of life, to resisting ourselves. You know, resisting can be any scale that happens during the day. It could be we have all these plans and all of a sudden there's tons of U-turns, right? And then we're like, hey, you know, and so for me, I'm learning in those moments, in those breaths, to know, okay, here we go. Oh, now we're over here. Okay, here we go, you know. And the more that I can flow with that, the more joy comes into life. And humor is incredibly important, to be able to laugh at how quirky life can show up sometimes. And when I laugh and when I can bring humor, I move out of that serious ego self that thinks, oh, maybe I need to control because things are getting a little too wild here. And I can laugh again, and I can trust spirit. So a quote from Oscar Wilde is, life is too important to be taken seriously. Yeah. Right? Life is too important to be taken seriously. We take ourselves way too serious, and this life is way too quirky to be that serious with, is to be able to laugh more at the quirkiness of life. And then Marianne Williamson, the moment of surrender is not when life is over, it's when it begins. It's when it begins. Ooh, and I have lots of practice with that. I'm moving out, I'm moving back in, moving out, and I bet you some of you could relate with me on that. And so with the 5 gifts of abundance, as I wrap up, I want to read this piece. And what's been so sweet about this book, and Rev Kimberly did a recap for you, is really moving through these processes of gratitude, intention, forgiveness, tithing, and surrender. How beautiful that surrender is the grand finale of the book. And the piece of surrender, too, is one of the things that kind of a call of action for all of us today is in what areas are we not surrendering? In what areas are we a little restricted in? Is it relationships? Is it our health? Is it financial? Is it hanging out with friends? Whatever areas that may be for ourselves, that's the areas for us to open our hearts and our flow to. And to give to those areas, because as we give, we receive. As we give, we receive. And so a little part of a quote from the book is the mystic speaks on tithing. I'm not going to necessarily read the part on tithing. I'm going to read the part about opening to supply, because that supply is across the board. And so it's from Joel Goldsmith, The Art of Spiritual Healing, which he's just such an amazing, heartfelt author. Okay, so here we go. There is no supply outside of your being. If you want to enjoy the abundance of supply, you must open out a way for the supply to escape. Because of the infinite nature of your being, you cannot add health to yourself or wealth or opportunity or companionship. All you can do is recognize that you embody all that God is and has. So all of that is already inside of us. We just got to open to it. We got to open to it and surrender to it in whatever area that might be. And so my final quote is from Rumi. Be grounded, be crumbled, so wildflowers will come up where you are. You've been stony for too many years. Try something different. Surrender. It's from Rumi. Namaste.
She is flowing, flowing and growing. The river, she is flowing down to the sea. The river, she is flowing, flowing and growing. The river, she is flowing down to the sea. Mother, carry me, a child I will always be. Mother, carry me down to the sea. Mother, carry me, a child I will always be. Mother, carry me down to the sea. Ganga ki jaya jaya, Yamuna ki jaya jaya. 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 The river, she is flowing, flowing and growing. The river, she is flowing down to the sea. The river, she is flowing, flowing and growing. The river, she is flowing down to the sea. Mother, carry me, a child I will always be. Mother, carry me down to the sea. Mother, carry me, a child I will always be. Mother, carry me down to the sea. Ganga ki jaya jaya, Yamuna ki jaya jaya. 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 The river, she is flowing, flowing and growing. The river, she is flowing down to the sea.
So before we move to our time of collecting tithes and offerings, we want to remind you that we're wrapping up our series on dancing in the flow, which has been a great fun. And we want to thank everybody who has already turned in your conscious giving cards, your pledge cards, and encourage you to prayerfully consider joyfully committing to a certain amount each month or each week, however you want to do it. This is a really important practice, not only for our community and our health, but also, as we know, to put ourselves in the flow. As Rev Michelle mentioned, where we give, we receive. So you want to add something to that?
I do. I was contemplating in the shower today, which is a great place to contemplate. And I was thinking about how blessed we are in this community. You know, the growth, seeing all of you here, our classes, we have a group of practitioners starting. We're making announcements today where we have an incredible community outreach group. We have an in-house community cares group. And there's just so many wonderful things going on, and none of this would be possible without you. You are our center. You are our center. And so when it comes to tithing, sometimes that, can be crunchy for people. But what we ask is just a gift from the heart, because that's what matters, and whatever level you're comfortable, because we appreciate each of you. And we also are so incredibly blessed for our beautiful community. So thank you for your support with that.
Thank you, Rev. So I'm going to invite our ushers forward. And if you forgot our pledge card or didn't get one, we do have more. I think you have those, Patricia, in the basket somewhere. Ellen has them. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to invite us into our giving affirmation. If you'd repeat after me, please. Graciously I give. From a place of love. Knowing that as I give, so do I richly receive. And so it is. So it is.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Woohoo! And it took me somewhere else. I had to come back. Okay, we've got a lot of announcements today, which is wonderful, all the wonderful poppy energy. So Unity CSL Choir is rehearsing on Wednesday, November 9th at 6:30 here at Unity. All are welcome to join, and the choir will sing at our joint CSL Unity Christmas candle lighting service on Friday, December 23rd. Mental equivalent. So this class is a 5-week class. It is starting this upcoming Wednesday from 6 to 8:30 p.m. And it's a powerful little class. It is about really embodying what that is that we're wanting to call into our life, and moving towards that action. And sometimes mental equivalent back in the day was very much about give me more. But mental equivalent is about more joy and more peace and more life. And so it can be anything for whatever is going on in your life. So if you're interested in signing up, there's a sign up in the social hall. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be facilitating the class, and it will be on Zoom. So our first testimony for this service is our beautiful Dana, who has been so involved in our community over the years. We haven't seen her in a while, and it's so wonderful that she's back here today. So please come on up.
Yay!
There you go.
Hello, everybody. It has been too long since I've been here in person with all of you, my loving spiritual family. But I want you to know we have never been separated. You are always right here, and I am always here with you energetically. So my name's Dana Marie Machado, and known as Danama in these parts. And I've been a member here since 2010. But on October 11th, I had knee replacement surgery, and I can't drive. I can't dance either. But the CSL RV community care team was there to fill all my transportation needs, as we were saying, transportation to transformation, 100%. To get me to my physical therapy appointments, which now will provide me even a more rapid recovery so that I can drive and, more importantly, dance again. And I want to especially thank Renee Hansen and Wendy Wellborn, who have organized this community care team. This is compassion in action. Virginia Hodgson, Ginny Nichols, Nancy Clay, and I met new people too, like Michelle Samuelson and Terry Barbary. I'm probably not pronouncing that. But I know the importance of community outreach because that was my focus when I was on the board of this community, and community outreach was my focus. So I've continued to learn how to be a professional organizer with Northwest Seasonal Workers Association, which is right down the road on Oakdale by the YMCA, so we're neighbors. And we're moving into the cold of the winter holiday season, and there'll be many opportunities for us to collaborate and meet the needs of the greater community through our community care. And I hope to be back and update you on more, but it's just beyond words beautiful that I'm here with you, and my heart is so full, my soul is so grateful. So thank you.
Thank you. So good to see you. So now I have a testimony from one of our amazing students who has an amazing heart, and I'd like to call Eddie up to say a few words. Thank you. Sure, come on up. There you go, Eddie.
Good morning, everybody. Boy, it's nice to see just such a nice full house here today. And I don't think there's anyone more surprised than me to be standing in front of you today. A year ago, I couldn't even imagine myself in a church, much less standing behind a microphone delivering a message. The whole lot's happened in that year to change my mind. A year ago, my life had been a real struggle, and I'd lost much hope in finding happiness. I was wearing the long face way too often, spending too much time alone. It seemed that a negative cloud was following me everywhere I went. The message the Reverends are sharing today is about surrender, and that's exactly what I did. I finally became too weary to carry the load and decided to surrender my heart to the God of the universe, and that's the God inside of me. From that move, I was led to CSL and Unity, and the moment I stepped through these doors, I knew I was home. The messages, the music, the people, and so much goodness and light. That positive vibe struck a chord inside of me which felt happy, free, and hopeful. It had been such a long time since I felt that way. I began to study the science of mind, read a few books, and attended several afternoon workshops. I began to bake desserts to share after church, tried out Tai Chi, and even attended a drum circle. In other words, I got myself involved. Since then, I've taken several online classes with Reverend Michelle and Reverend Kimberly. What an amazing experience each one of those have been. An individual experience, but also a bonding with my fellow students and teachers. I'm learning so much and having so much fun learning it. These classes offer not just a great opportunity to study the science of mind, but also how to put it into practice in your life. If you're like me, the idea of online Zoom classes might seem difficult, but nothing could be further from the truth. Believe me, if I can do it, you can do it too. And my friend Kathy has offered if anybody needs help figuring out Zoom, she would be more than glad to help you out. Mostly, though, I just want to say thank you to everyone here for making me feel so welcome and part of a church family. My life is so good now. I'm so grateful and I'm so blessed. Amen and a woman, and so it is.
Oh, thank you, Eddie. We're blessed that you're a part of our community. Blessed. Okay, so our last announcer is our beautiful practitioner, Laura Stewart, to talk about an amazing project that she's overseeing for us. Laura.
Good morning, everybody. I love this time of the year. The colors are changing. The smell of the air just makes you think of the holidays, and it's just a nice time to be alive. So when we, earlier in the fall, did our co-creation process, one of the things that kept coming up is being involved with our community and outreach, which Dana spoke so beautifully of. One of the things that kind of started coming up for me was, what can we do for those in our community during the holidays to make it just a little more loving, more kind, and more special? How can we bring holidays home to the people who may not have the best situations right now? Because you know what? I know that we live in an abundant universe that's overflowing beyond our wildest imaginations. But sometimes that isn't how it's showing up for some people. So what we're doing this year, and what I invite you to consider, is that we're working in conjunction with the Maslow Project to bring Christmas to 5 youths in our community. We have 3 girls and 2 boys that we're going to be sponsoring this year. And in the social hall, we have a list of the gifts that they're asking for this year. So I'd like you to consider either sponsoring a child entirely, or taking a look at their Christmas gift list and maybe selecting 1 or 2 of those gifts to help make their Christmas just a little brighter. There's also a green list there to help if you feel called to help volunteer with some of the things that we need to do to make this miracle happen in their lives. So I thank you for your consideration, and Merry Almost Christmas, everybody!
Thank you. So we do have one more speaker, one more quick announcement with one of our wonderful teens who is such an incredible example of a teen that comes to CSL. So there you go, Rowan.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Rowan, and I'm on the Ashland High School snowboarding team. And to support the snowboard team, we are selling holiday wreaths for $25 for a wreath, $5 extra if you would like a bow on the wreath. You can pre-order it in the social hall here after the service. And on the 20th, on Sunday, you can pick it up here. Or if you can't make it to church on the 20th, I can deliver it to you. So yeah, thank you.
What an amazing, blessed community we have. Woohoo! So newsletter, sign up in a social hall, prayer box is in the back. Also pledge cards you can drop off in the back. If you'd like to submit a prayer request online for all of our online wonderful community, it's cslroguevalley.org. And if you just want to take a deep collective breath with me right now, as we move into our closing prayer, and just knowing that it is all God, that it is all good, that it is all right now, and the gift of surrender, the gift of community, the gift of the divine is always there. As we open ourselves to that, we allow ourselves to flow with light and feel that ever-present love and send that out into the world, knowing that it is God, that it is now, that it is light, that it is love, and that it is always. I release this knowing that it is done, and together we say, and so it is, and so it is. Amen. Thank you.
All right, we'd like to invite you to stand for our closing song, which is aptly named Stand. Let there be peace, let there be love, let there be joy. We are making a new world now. For years I would talk about how I wanted to change the world, but I always left it up for someone else to do. Then I finally realized I needed to take a stand, and that by changing my thinking, I could change my life, and that's how I could change the world. Let there be peace, I am a stand for peace. Let there be love, I am a stand for love. Let there be joy, I am a stand for joy. We are making a new world now. Let there be peace, I am a stand for peace. Let there be love, I am a stand for love. Let there be joy, I am a stand for joy. We are making a new world now. Let there be peace, I am a stand for peace. Let there be love, I am a stand for love. Let there be joy, woo! I am a stand for joy. We are making a new world now. Let there be peace, I am a stand for peace. Let there be love, I am a stand for love. Let there be joy, I am a stand for joy. We are making a new world now. Again, we are making